Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started with the work session. It's Monday, February 23rd, 2026, 4:30 p.m. here in the Thomas J. Smith Council Chambers, City Hall, 400 Washington Street, Burlington, Iowa. First up tonight on the work session, amongst our many discussion items, is the Treasurer's Report. Mrs. Crowner.
In the packet was January's Treasurer's Report. I didn't see anything that I would not expect in here. So if you guys have any questions, I mean, the things are the same as what I've told you before, timing issues and waiting on grant funds or reimbursements.
Council, did you have any questions over what was given in the packet?
Saunderson Heights, you're just waiting for the,
We got our first 250,000. Regional Planning has put in the request for the second, and then there'll be a third payment. So, yeah, it's been submitted. We're just waiting.
Okay.
Okay.
all right, and on the Fire Station Number 3 project, it's showing as a negative balance. I'm not,
We haven't bonded for that yet. So, I mean, we're just accruing the expenses that we've spent so far.
And we move those into a project fund, so they sit there as a project fund, and right now, the project only has expenses, doesn't have revenue.
right. Okay. But we've satisfied the contractors with all of those, right?
Yes,
Correct. Okay.
yes, yep. There are no, other than current contractor, Carle Nelson, there are no outstanding debts or obligations.
Okay. I honestly was confused on that, so, thank you.
What'll happen is, when we bond for that project, once we go to bid and we're ready to award contracts, and Travis will talk about that a little bit tonight. Travis Squires, our financial advisor, will be here tonight. We'll decide how much of that current project fund deficit we want to reimburse ourselves for, or all of it, up to all of it, and satisfy that capital project item.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is a discussion about Greater Burlington Housing, led by Amy O'Brien and others, I'm sure. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me on behalf of the Greater Burlington Partnership Housing Committee. I'm here today with Mike Norris, Sarah Hecox, and Greg Monsager, and Chad Bird's also on our committee. Our committee was formed following the 2023 Housing Needs Assessment, and our goal is to identify practical steps committees can take to support housing development and neighborhood reinvestment, and to share these practical steps with each of our city councils. We have presented in the communities of Mediapolis and West Burlington and are honored to be with you here today. You should have received a letter in your packet from our committee, and we are encouraging 3 focused strategies. Number 1, to strengthen and consistently enforce nuisance and abandoned property ordinances. Number 2, prioritize funding for targeted demolition of structures that are beyond rehabilitation. And number 3, to implement and clearly publicize responsible housing incentives. You should have received a copy of our housing development and incentive brochure that can easily be placed on your website or given to developers that wish to develop in our area. But before I go any further, I just want to share a short email that I received from Chad Bird recently. He attached a copy of the Community Development Monthly Report and sent it to me and several of my directors, and he said, I want to give a shameless plug for our nuisance and community development folks. They are seeing some incredible redevelopment and nuisance results. We had 8 657A cases, 84 nuisances this month, and 125 junk vehicles year to date. We are cleaning things up. I work with superheroes. So it made me smile, and it made me feel proud of our city and the work that this council is supporting. You are doing great work, but there's always room for improvement, and our committee recommends an ordinance that will address our vacant buildings in a more proactive approach. Vacant and blighted structures reduce property values, discourage reinvestment, and impact safety. Communities like Keokuk and Fort Madison have adopted tools to address these challenges, and the Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission has provided copies to our committee to share with our city councils. You should have also gotten those in your packet. Our Housing Committee feels that requiring building owners to register their vacant properties annually will do three things. It gives city visibility. You cannot manage what you cannot track. It creates accountability for the property owner. Registration establishes clear ownership responsibility for maintenance, security, and code compliance. And a graduated fee structure will create incentives to produce reuse rather than long-term speculative vacancy. Our committee will continue to meet regularly and work to discover ways to support and encourage housing development and rehabilitation in the greater Burlington area. With our superheroes on board, I feel like we can accomplish a great deal together. Thank you. Do you have any questions for?
Council, you have any questions after looking at the packet? The only thing I would probably say, Amy, I'd like to, because I appreciate the work you guys are doing, I'd like to read the members. Members of this committee are Taylor Collins, Amy O'Brien, Mike Norris, Melissa Swinker, Ryan Nagraki, Brock Ida, Jeff Burkhart, Sarah Hecox, Zach James, Kay Sackville, Chad Bird, Greg Mansager, and Doug Rolfs, just so you know, and it's read into record. Did anybody have any questions for Amy? Anything to add, committee members? Anything to add? Okay, keep up the good work. We'll keep working on it. And we would agree with Chad's assessment about our staff. They are superheroes doing great work, and I'm glad for them. Next up is after the housing update is now a fire station number 3 update. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry, housing update. They ran together, Sarah, sorry. Housing update from Southeast Iowa Regional Planning, Sarah Hecox.
I'm Sarah Hecox with the Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission,
Okay.
and talking with staff, we thought it'd be a good time to come update the current council on our home rehab block grant that we have, the pilot we have that we are closing out, and along with some other housing grants. The home rehab block grant pilot, the city received $1 million in grant funds. This required a local match of $250,000 from the city. These are ARPA funds, and they were targeting cities that had invested in their downtown areas. So those were the communities that were allowed to apply for the pilot, and they wanted to kind of work on those neighborhoods surrounding the downtown. So the Saunderson Heights neighborhood was the one that was selected. We have completed 5 rental units, 12 owner-occupied projects, and 1 reconstruction project.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
For the public, can you just say what ARPA stands for?
It's the American Recovery.
It's been about 5 years.
Yeah, it was a COVID relief fund.
Yes.
Yeah,
American
Public
Recovery,
assistance?
Public
Is that right?
Assistance, something like that.
close enough.
Sorry. I didn't
Rescue
mean-
plan.
Rescue plan, there it
I
is.
didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I.
Obviously, no one else knew it either,
Yes,
Sarah,
all,
so
all cities and
we all
counties, the
blocked
state
it
was,
out.
given the funds, and then they, had different pilots
So
throughout,
it
throughout the
was
years.
COVID money.
Yes,
That's to make that clear.
Yep. So our program, we focused a lot on the exterior of the home, also health and safety, such as electrical upgrades and furnaces. So this is a project we did at 1113 University. We did siding, soffit, fascia, gutters, windows, roof. Another project we did right next door at 1111 University. Pretty much the same project. She received soffit, fascia, siding, gutters, windows, and roof. We did a project at 206 South 8th Street. Another project on 9th Street. And this is the back side of that project on 9th Street. And a lot of our projects, we needed these 3 main rehab items with a siding, roof, and windows. So we saw some large project grants to the homeowners. So that's why we just ended up with the 12 homeowners. And then also these funds, they had a component that you could rehab or renovate abandoned properties, and this was to reduce negative impacts in the neighborhood. Since we don't see funding for this a lot, it was decided that we would address the project at 1100 Division. So the reconstruction of this property took place on the original footprint of the house. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, open concept. It does have a 1-car attached garage. It's for sale for income-qualified homeowners at $180,000. There is down payment assistance available for the home buyer, and then the city would also offer their tax abatement to the homeowner. Here's some interior pictures. We talked about having an open house, so we'll let you know if that gets scheduled for you to attend. A couple rentals we did, one at 1116 University Place. They received siding, soffit fascia gutters, downspouts. This has 3 units in it. And then another rental project we did over on 10th Street. This one has 2 units. Again, this grant allowed for rental properties, which we don't typically see. So it was nice to help some of those buildings in this neighborhood with the rental projects. Another program that we had available was a home repair pilot program. This was another pilot that was offered through COVID funds. These took place July 2024 to around July of 2025. Again, we focused on things such as siding, roof, and windows. So the homeowner had to have a hardship from COVID. They applied with the Iowa Finance Authority, and then we received them to do the inspection piece. So we did 15 projects in Burlington. The maximum grant to the homeowner was $35,000, and the total projects that we did in Burlington totaled $492,806. So this project's been closed out. It was a pilot. But here's a couple of projects that we did. One at on South 6th Street was siding. One on Crestview Drive. She received windows, roof, and needed her bathroom vented. And then one on Court Street. He received siding, windows, and a door. Another project that we have is our Housing Trust Fund. I usually come and give the council update on this project. The city gives us $20,000 to use as a local match every year. So you may see that on the city's budget, that this is the program that those funds go towards. So over the years, between the Iowa Finance Authority, the local match required, and our leverage funds is a little over $9 million that we've received for housing for the region.
I wouldn't be so quick to go past that one.
Oh,
To be
okay,
honest with you,
okay.
because we always
I
get.
wasn't sure.
Well, I know. We always get, I'm just gonna make a comment, we always get comments, why do you pursue grants? Why do you pursue all these different programs? That's exactly why. $9 million basically worth of value over the last 14 years. And
Yep.
our local match is 1348, and we know it's for the region, not just for us, but what a great job, thank you.
And then, so with this program, we use it for local match for other grants, so we can even leverage even more funding.
Yeah, thank you.
So the different programs that we have available for individuals with our Housing Trust Fund, we have a couple for the homeowner with down payment assistance and the rehab, and then some for developers with the upper story conversion, and then the development and special project financing. So a couple projects that we've done in Burlington. We had individual on Agency Street, she needed new windows and doors. This is a project on Brick Street. They received Housing Trust Fund in additional to a Federal Home Loan Bank grant that we have, so we could do a little larger project on this project. The most recent one that we've completed is the project at 142 South Central Avenue. This also received funding with our Federal Home Loan Bank, so we could do the siding along with the windows, doors, and gutters. Upper story rental conversion project that we just completed at 604, 608 Jefferson. This project includes 2 bedrooms and 1-bedroom units. We funded 4 units. That's the max that we offer with our housing trust fund. So they received $160,000 towards this project. But the entire project has 14 units at this space. A special financing project that we offer developers. They can partner this with other programs such as community development block grants, tax credits. So we have committed a low-interest loan to the Apollo project. So I kind of put some numbers together. These are numbers that from July 1st of 2024 to current. So with our home rehab block grants, the home repair pilot, the Great River Housing Trust Fund, that includes the Apollo investment. And then what we've spent so far with Federal Home Loan Bank. And so since that July date, we've spent a little over $2.3 million on projects in Burlington. We currently have a lead hazard reduction program. My coworker, Jack's been going around to the schools and the public health to kind of get the word around that we have these funds available. They're to reduce lead hazards in the homes. They will pay for the lead inspection and also to remediate the lead found in the home. Windows and other painted surfaces contain lead, so these are kind of the items that we will address. Siding can also have lead, so that may be something that they can get assistance with as well. The household has to have a child 5 or under living in the house or visiting, so if a grandparent had a grandchild visiting the house, they would qualify as well. And then the house must be built prior to 1978. I did bring flyers with me for this program that I'm going to leave with Eric that he can put if individuals are interested in applying for that program. This is a variety of different income guidelines. All of our programs seem like they have different incomes, so that kind of goes over those if somebody's interested. And then looking forward, we apply every year for a Great River Housing Trust Fund. We appreciate the commitment that the city gives us each year for our local match. And then we also have our lead hazard reduction program. We're finishing up our Federal Home Loan Bank rehab program, and then we are planning to apply for another one in May. The city's aware of the community development block grants. They did away with the housing programs, and this year they are offering those again. They have the upper story rehab program and then also a roof replacement program. Assistance with home program, if there's interest there, the variety of tax credits that you're aware of, partnering with Homes for Iowa, and then also doing development with our Southeast Iowa Housing, Inc. So those are different options for future housing projects. If there's any questions, my email address, phone number to the office website.
Great. Counselor, you have any questions or concerns that Sarah can address? Comments?
No, but so many bright spots, and it's nice to drive around and see the
The work
progress
being
in
done.
these beautiful
Yes,
homes.
we have a lot of people on fixed incomes that are very appreciative to receive the funds. Without them, their house kind of falls into disrepair.
It's really kind of a life-altering event, isn't it?
Yes.
For a
yes.
good reason.
Yep.
So
We've
that's-
seen a
that's
lot of windows lately, and many of the homeowners comment how much it saves them on their utility bill, so that's
I
nice
love
to hear.
that.
Yes.
Well, keep up the good work.
Yep, yes.
Anyone else? I will just say that those homeowners or tenants have to have more pride once you're done.
Yes.
Because you can
Very
see it
excited.
on every property, and so it's great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Okay. Now, Fire Station number 3 update. Chief Toops. Thank you for coming, guys.
Good afternoon, council.
Good afternoon, Chief.
We'll see if Eric can get this put on the boards here momentarily. So while we're waiting on that, I'll tell you, I'll start off by saying this is very brief presentation, but again, in a continued effort to provide updates, transparency, and communication, just trying to keep that going. So brief tonight. I think this is 4 slides, and 2 of the first slides you've seen before, but again, continue to discuss these things. And then on the back end are slides or pictures that you have not seen before. So we'll get started. So this is one that you have seen, again, just the update of where we are with Canco, and just the comparison slides of the interior layout of the building and all those square foot reductions that Carl A. worked so hard to provide. This was provided to us about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was actually pretty important because we had to give our department stamp of approval on all those square footages, and then just the spacing that we wanted and how we thought the building would flow, and all of our priorities, because when we approved this footprint, that essentially had Carl A. and Klingner mark yes, proceed forward, and then everybody else waiting in their queue, IT, HVAC, mechanical, electrical, is starting to, in the backgrounds, work on exactly what you see in front of you. So just, you have seen that before, but again, there it is again. You've seen this one also. That's the same thing as the slide just before it, just the reductions in square footage from all the exterior areas and adjacent areas and pavement. Big takeaway here is approximately 18,000 less square foot than the original project. This is one that you have not seen, and this is probably the newest update from Canco and Klingner. So this is essentially what they call 99% of what they're mocking up as the exterior of the fire station. 2 views there. If you're looking at those 2 main pictures on the right side, pretend you're standing on Roosevelt, if you would, and looking at the front of the fire station. So this is pretty true to what it would look like. The doors, the garage doors, perhaps might be red. And then also like the color of that exterior, it looks like brick. That would actually, what we're planning to have it be is precast walls that looks like brick. A lot of new techniques and advancement in how they can do precast walls these days. But we're looking forward. We have a plan about going to the company that they're hopeful to have get this bid and go tour their facility and pick out the design, the color, you name it, of the precast wall. But that would actually be a precast wall that's to simulate bricks. And we're told it looks quite good. So I guess I'll share, though, the reason I do put that other visual, which is the aerial view with the red box, is what you don't see in those pictures are a 3-story training tower in the background behind the fire station. However, we're still showing that red box because and Klingner and Canco understands this 100%. We're not building a fire station. We're not planning on any of that right there during this project. That is a complete separate project. However, if it makes sense for them to, say, run electrical conduit in a particular part because they're already back in the back lot, they'll do so. But that red box that you see would basically be the training tower and the adjacent pavement and foundation of where we would like it to be, with hopefully your approval in the next year or so. So again, completely unattached from this project, but it's worthy of showing you in that visual, if that makes sense. Do you guys have any questions on this slide, since you guys have not seen that technically?
That's just parking south of the red block for the training, or is that just pavement?
If you're, Mayor, you.
That right there,
This
yeah.
right there, I'll show you in the top slide. That's what you're looking at.
Oh, okay.
That is a detached, 3-car storage or garage facility.
Okay.
I'll point, since you mentioned it, the one thing that's important now in this new project is it's a couple of multi-purpose reasons. One being in our tours of training facilities, we toured 4. One huge takeaway we got from touring those facilities and talking with those individuals in those departments, they all asked one question: do you plan on building a separate storage facility, garage, something? And we said, not necessarily. And they said, well, you need to include that in your plans, and here's why. If you ever plan on storing your items, your training props in your facility, you'll never use your facility. They said, take it from us, take it from our mistakes in the past. You have to have a separate little set aside storage site, or else you're spending half of your time getting this stuff out. But that was some of their advice. Also, in consideration, again, multi-purpose, we have several trailers and other smaller vehicles that we simply ran out of space. This could perform a dual role where we park those vehicles in a secure and safe space, and then also in proactively preparing for what might be a mowing and maintenance of the lot. So if we were to have mowers, snow blowers, things of that type of maintenance, if we started storing them in the actual apparatus bay, that would go against responding quickly in the vehicles that it's geared and meant for. So you don't want to have a mower sitting in front of your fire station, or I'm sorry, your fire truck. It's not designed for that. So that's what that is, Mayor. That's a detached 3-part garage / storage.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Lastly, it's a pretty important slide, but again, it's a transparent slide that we thought would be nice to show you at today's time and date. So these are all the costs of the project from day one leading up to last week. And those are in order. So the land purchase from Goalie Transportation, $475,000. Some of the appraisal companies, which was Data Source, Midwest Realty, and Rally Appraisals, we had 3 to get a good understanding of what the appraisals on the land was going to come in at. We spent $2,400. Land surveying from Klinger, you can see that number. And then the big players in the original project were DCI and OPN. You see the costs associated with those 2 companies. And then we progressed toward Canco, which is Carl A., and where we spent money with them, and then Klingner again in their official role in designing this new fire station. And you see the totals there, just over $1 million. That is what we've spent on this project to date. So if you don't
Okay.
have any other questions,
Council, questions, comments, concerns?
thank you so much.
Yep, thanks,
We will.
Chief. Good presentation, appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, next up, our friend Travis Squires is here to talk to us about our city financial report.
Oh, my goodness.
Wish I could be as concise as the chief, but
Is that a pre-warning?
I will do my best.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for having us come out and speak through the financials. I do think it will go pretty quick here. We're going to hit a lot more high-level things. There are a few things that are a little bit, I won't say up in the air, but obviously some recent news on Cascade Bridge, which is kind of forcing a little bit of a pivot as we kind of work through the plan. And I'll talk to you about how, despite maybe your CIP not officially be amended, how I've been updating your financial plan based on conversations with staff. Obviously, we're not going to borrow for money that you get grants for. And then additionally, we'll just talk through a couple pressure points that we're seeing. Nothing out of the ordinary. I think I would say, it looks really similar to some property tax reform. I'm prepared to speak just very briefly on that, but clearly there are some things that are working in the legislature, 3 bills that, stop at any time. And again, I'll try to hit a few of the things that I think are important and then prompt you for any feedback. So if we kind of move through kind of the roadmap, I really didn't update anything on that summary of capital planning on slide 4 there. Just kind of the whole, I guess I'd say continued progress that you make as a community, which is fantastic. Some of our internal rating metrics that we look at for the city have also been improving. We did, as we kind of work through an issuer comment that you recently received from Moody's, and then just kind of preparing for the bond rating process, you continue to be in a slightly stronger position each year that we move forward. So it's really good to see. As we kind of look at the capital planning targets on the next slide, then, your debt limit margin currently sitting around 51%. So obviously, one of the lower marks that we've had in kind of these annual reviews. If you didn't issue any debt with your new valuation as of July of this year and paying off your June payments, you'd be at 42.8%. But, obviously there's some plans to do a few projects which will impact that. Your debt service levy, current FY26 at the 37979. I think you'll be kind of in a similar spot with this year's budget. One thing that we've talked about in the past of, looking at your TIF valuation, the ability to release some of that valuation does benefit the city's operating budget. So this year, kind of moving in with a lower TIF claim than you've had previously. So not that it made budgeting any easier, it just gave you a few more tools in your toolbox as you kind of work through the FY27 budget. So you're not at that 100% TIF income. I don't have the exact percentage. I think it's somewhere around 75% to 80% of maximum, which is the lowest, I would say the lowest the city's been probably in a decade or two in terms of your TIF claim. So some really nice progress there. One of the things we've been talking about is just kind of setting a new target levy rate. Some of this reliance upon using tax increment financing dollars has been offsetting your debt service levy. So as you kind of think about transitioning away from having as much TIF valuation claim, it might put a little bit of pressure on, if you're going to do the same level of projects that you've been doing, a little bit more pressure on the debt service levy. Now, all that being said, some of your operating levies do get a little bit of relief there, but just know that's one thing that we'll be continuing to watch. There may be some things, projects that, if we think about your street program, for example, could there be some opportunities to enhance what you're doing with some of your potential side streets, or some of your street program actually be funded out of your tax increment financing dollars instead of your debt service levy? I think there's going to be some opportunities there. But nothing that you're being asked to make a decision on today. It's just as we kind of think through the 10-year plan, we could start to see a few things shift. Anything you want to add there, Chad, on that topic?
No, other than just, Travis mentions modifying our TIF list, our urban renewal plan. Some things to keep in mind, maybe the fire station. We have a couple of fire apparatus that we're looking at in the next couple, 3 years. Maybe those get added to a TIF urban renewal list. And then some of the side streets or residential streets, which we haven't really talked much about. But with us using less and less TIF, maybe that's an opportunity to make an impact in the neighborhoods. So just something to think about.
Okay. So just a few things on property tax reform, just so you're kind of aware of a few of the things going on right now. There are, and maybe you've been briefed on this, so I'll try to keep it short and to the point here. There are 3 bills that are out there. The governor's bill has been assigned both a House and Senate study number. There's the Senate Study Bill 3001, which is kind of the rehash of Senator Dawson's bill from last year. And then the House has a bill, and they range from 109 pages to like 28 pages, depending on the bill. Actually, two of them are over 100 pages, and the House bill is the short one. There are certain restrictions that do come in. If we hit the House bill in particular, there's some restrictions that come down to voting a lot more projects. That would be kind of a key thing that we would mark off there on that one. There's also some restrictions into how much you can grow your budget, looking at more hard caps on your operating budget as opposed to valuation-based system that we have right now. When you look at the Senate study bill 3001, I think the one thing we continue to see on that one is understanding how the impact may end up shifting some property taxes more to the residential homeowner side, if you look at kind of a class mix between commercial and industrial. But we have not yet aligned all of our assumptions with what's coming out of that Senate study bill. So I kind of reserve a little bit of, I won't say criticism, but just kind of reserve a little bit of our analysis that we haven't seen numbers coming forth from like the Legislative Services Agency on that bill to really make a good, kind of show us your numbers, we'll show you what we've come up with, and let's compare the two. We have done comprehensive modeling of all three bills, including comparisons to the status quo, and we've been working a little bit with the Iowa League of Cities on that analysis. When you get to the governor's proposal then, you see some kind of minor tweaking of, some exemptions for homeowners in terms of like capping property taxes as they, age through, paying taxes for 40 years on your house, right? You start to get some caps there. It's a little bit unclear how communities with aging populations could see some tax burden shifting, right? If you end up, let's say, as an example that, everybody's paying property taxes, then as a aging community, maybe only 65% of those people are now paying taxes or paying increases going forward. There's a resulting shift that would take place there. And so, one of the questions would be, does that make it harder to attract new homeowners to your community? So I think there's just some things that need to be fleshed out on those bills. Again, we don't stand here opposed or against anything. We're just kind of pointing out a few of the things that cause us a little bit of heartburn when we get through the analysis. So kind of hit pause there. Any questions or anything you guys? Chad, you probably briefed the council on some of these things already, so.
Yeah, probably too much.
Normally involves spitting on the ground and stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Stand
just so you know,
big
kind of
feet.
progress, what we're hearing is subcommittee this week on the governor's proposal, subcommittee potentially scheduled next week on Dawson's proposal. We haven't heard anything on the House bill. So we'll see how that progresses. We've, again, been in dialogues to try to figure out what's the best way to engage the parties. We've heard from a few people that they're got to get in the room together and talk about what they like on each of the bills. I continue to contend there'll be a Frankenstein approach to the bills, and that we'll pick and choose things we like, and everybody will just go home happy. It won't happen, but I think there is a thought process that they really want to get something done in the legislative session this year. So I think some of it will be also trying to play defense on the things that you think are most important to protect. So I should stop there because the rest of the commentary just gets into more opinions. So I should avoid those.
Just makes us worry more.
Oh, yeah, let's just say we put a lot of time into it so far, and
From my side, if all that goes through, if the veterans credits and the seniors credits and all that goes through, the city's gonna have to pay me to continue to live here. Because the taxes will be completely wiped out, and there's going to be a balance there that's,
Yeah, and so if the city budget grows at 2% still and you exempt people from paying taxes in it, then the money doesn't grow on trees. So it'll be an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you think that the legislators recognize what they're doing to the cities?
I think they're trying to. I think they're trying to understand the impacts. Because these things all come from ideas, and the math behind them is really complicated. And so they need numbers to make data-based decisions. And it's really hard to slam 3 different bills on. I mean, we've got one employee that's basically all they've done for the last month and a half is work on trying to bring this analysis together. There's been some analysis that came out from Iowa Taxpayers Association, kind of trying to compare those bills, and, we've had an opportunity to look at it, and, there's some things in there that, I think they got right, and some things that, like any model, the assumption doesn't make a ton of sense. But I think that's some of the dialogue, that they got to get the analysis, we got to understand the impacts, and, I think it would have been easier to be able to say, like, hey, we have this, let's study it for a year, right? And that's what everybody always says, let's study it for a year. But I also get the impression that, they want to get something done, so there's going to be a lot of numbers flying back and forth, and, advocacy needs for communities around the state to try to figure out how it's going to impact them. And then there's the side thing, what does this do to the state's budget? Anytime you start talking tax reform, there are components, specifically as it relates to school funding, that flow back to how much money comes from the state's general fund. So when you're trying to show tax impact, or your city budget impact, that's one component of it. How does it impact your homeowners in various classes? That's another component. And then what does it all do to the state's budget and affordability? And so none of these bills can be taken, in just looking at how does that one point. Because one bill you'll say that works best for the city's budget. The next bill you say, well, that one looks best for taxpayers. And the other one you'll say, well, that one doesn't look very good for the state's budget. So trying to mesh all of that together and figure out what the goals are and what you want to accomplish, I think are the hardest thing, which is where you kind of step back to, is there anything easy you can do to just say everybody gets some property tax relief and be done? And unfortunately, they didn't ask me about that, but, there are a few ideas that we'd have, like, this would be a simple one, right? It doesn't change a whole lot, and, for lack of better, I do trust that the process will play out. I don't know how all the deals get made in the back room, so.
I will say this, if their activity negatively impacts my community, I would prefer that they not feel the need to get stuff done. They can just sit on it,
Yeah, we could sit here,
right?
we could sit here and throw bricks at them all day long, because I do think it's somewhat, humorous is not a good word for it, ridiculous that they're now talking in some circles on both sides of the aisle about rescinding House File 718. So don't pass something just to pass it. I agree with you,
Yeah,
Robert, but you're talking to.
A flurry of activity
And-
doesn't mean you're getting anything
And
productive
Travis is
done.
not representing them. so-
No, we get it, we get
No,
it.
we understand
Yeah.
that, but I just was curious from your working with them to try to figure out if you,
I think your word was heartburn, right? It's giving you
Yeah,
heartburn.
it does. Like, we're trying to do the best we can to have active dialogues, right? Because at the end of the day, if there's a desire to get something done and it can work for all parties, great. I fail to see how there aren't winners and losers somewhere. Like, how do you have a bill that passes and everybody wins, right? That's the hard part. And, I think some of the talk is revenue restrictions, right? And, I think to candidly talk through your scenario is like, you guys feel like you've been on that anyway, based on the
Right,
existing
right,
legislation,
yeah.
right? Your valuations have only allowed your budget to go up. And, the funny thing is, Chad has these numbers, it's like, well, one of these bills gives you 2% growth. It's like, well, we've probably actually had about less than that over the last 10 years anyway. So, like, you've already sort of been rowing the boat, so I don't think it changes a lot for you, really, any of those scenarios from just operating. But I think for those who have been experiencing a lot of growth, it could be very limiting. And again, I appreciate the sentiment, because we're also in the same boat. Like, if it doesn't help, then why change it? And
Patience is a virtue.
yeah, but I do think this also just comes back to, we probably had a good opportunity few years ago when we did income tax reform to talk about this in a broader standpoint of, well, how does income tax reform relate to property tax reform, and how does that all play out? And again, I trust that there's smart people up at the legislature that will figure this out, and, you know, I think we'll just let the committee stuff play out and then be prepared to help offer solutions has been sort of our goal at this point. But I'd almost guarantee we've spent more time as a firm on this than anybody else in the state, but I don't want to toot our horns too much on that. But I think we got a pretty good idea of what's happening with the bills. All right.
Thank you.
So on to some good news. You know, for the first time in, you know, the decade, you've had like 3 years in a row with more than 2% valuation growth as a city. So, you know, as we kind of look through your valuation profile, kind of that top line here picks up, you know, your growth rates. Actual valuations up 8.35%, sort of continuing this growth profile. A lot of this due to residential properties going up on the actual valuation. Now, there's been rollback rate changes each year, so you're seeing a lot more modest, what we'd call taxable valuation growth, kind of that next section over. So a couple of years of decline, 3 years now, a little bit north of 5% growth. From a debt levy perspective, you know, we see your valuations up about 5.1%. From an operating budget standpoint, up about 9.86%. And again, that's due to this about 30% reduction in TIF. So if you can look back on that TIF valuation on the far right, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, claiming 124 million of valuation there in the TIF, which is about 100% at that time. Then having 3 subsequent years where you've released valuation out of your TIF. Again, that's part of why your operating budget growth has been a little bit stronger. So you've kind of slowed down on that capital spend out of TIF and have a little bit more to play with in the operating budget. Any questions on valuations before I move on?
Are the negative numbers then because we were TIF heavy then? Like when it bounces from like the -2 and 1 back up to 6 and 8 and 5?
One of those years, yes. The other year, just that 2021 year was just a really light year. If you fall over actual valuations up 0.55, and you can see taxable valuations were down each of those years. And that's really due to changes in the rollback rates, revaluation of properties. Sometimes you get protested valuations that were on 1 year and then off the next.
That's when rollbacks were really kicking in, or?
Rollback rates do shift, and they're a statewide issue. So if, for example, if statewide valuations went up 10%, sorry, let's just use 6%, on a actual valuation, on a taxable valuation, they're only allowed to go up 3%. For valuation statewide. But if you're an outlier in your community and you did not have that type of home appreciation in your community, you're still going to be hit with the same rollback rate change, even though you didn't have the appreciation. So it's a statewide rollback, but your individual values are going to be, you know, city by city, assigned by your county and city assessors in some locations. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Perfect. Debt profile for the city then on the following page. We just usually stack this up by each of your debt issues. And you can see nothing issued in 2025, but you can see really going back all the way to 16, you can see the sequence of debt that has been sold. If you follow all the way to the far right, that's picking up your total debt payments, about $5.8 million per year of total principal and interest payments. So $43.7 million of debt. You'll pay off 4.5 of that this June. You've already budgeted and received most of those revenues. On to the next slide then. There are components of your revenues that are paid with other sources. And so you can see TIF, there's a sewer component, and then the flood mitigation revenues are separate, and we'll call it sales tax increment. So you have one project funded there out of those debt obligations, a couple cash. We do have some more borrowings coming on that front that we'll talk about later. So of the, what I'll call $51 million of total debt, about $24.7 million is coming, so about 50% is coming from sources other than your debt service levy. Most of it, TIF, is the larger component.
Bless you.
So if you look at your tax rate history on the next page, the top illustrates levies only by the city of Burlington, and the bottom picks up a resident of the city within the Burlington Community School District. So you do see here in FY '26, city's levy moved back up to 1593, primarily due to funding of employee benefits. That's still, quite a bit lower than the high water marks that we saw back in 18 to 21. So just kind of looking at the 10-year history, kind of right in the middle, kind of on average with where you've been. If you go to the bottom table, then, you are picking up then the school district and community college levies as well. I think the component that you would note there, a little bit of an increase here on the school district side this past year. They had some things that they needed to do with their operating budget, kind of on a one-year bump, that it was shoring up a few things in their budget, so they saw an increase. So your overall taxpayers would have seen, all else held equal, an increase due to the fact that both the city and school went up, but the school was the significant component, going from 1225 to 1597, where the city went 1543 to 1593. At the same time, most of the rest of the levies stayed pretty stable. I don't have any particular knowledge of the school district's budget, but I do think it was more of a kind of a one-time shift that they were.
They voted for an auditorium for them, so that
That doesn't.
No, that wasn't
Isn't
bond.
on there yet.
oh my
No.
goodness, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'll go up again, huh?
No, I don't think you'll see increases beyond that. Moving to the constitutional debt limit side, I alluded to this a little bit earlier. This does pick up your utilization. There is a city policy on the books right now to stay within 70% of your constitutional debt limit. So you can see off to the far right, there's what I'll call the policy margin. So if you were to look at, based on debt that you're issuing this year, the policy margin would put you in that 15 to 24 million and still staying within that 70% margin factor. Keep in mind, constitutional debt limit is a number that you have to live within. It's 5% of your actual valuation. So of the 1.83 billion of valuation for the city, you have a debt limit of 91.6. And again, based on projections after making payments this year, you'd be at 39.2. So about 52.4 million remaining in your debt limit. There's been some conversations internally, just is the 70% number still the right number? Or is it better to look at more of a fixed number as opposed to a percentage? Certainly if you go back 10 years at 70%, your available margin, your debt limit was much lower at that time. So if we went back 10 years, your valuations are about 50% lower. So, is there a better policy margin limit than 70? Perhaps. What we've normally done with your scenario in your 5-year forecast, trying to make sure that if you do go over 70 in 1 year, it does balance out within the 5-year plan, and you can kind of see how that's played out pretty well for the city. So again, keeping a much more, I guess I would say, manageable debt limit than you were 10 years ago. So a very, very good progress on that component. We do have a couple of your outstanding sewer loans listed. We anticipate kind of coming back with more of a more formal sewer conversation. So this was just loans that, we do have some SRF loans, projects in progress that need to get updated in this table that aren't being shown yet because they're not final. Okay, so moving on to current year. And again, a little bit of a work in progress. Usually we're pretty final at this point, given some of the Cascade Bridge discussion and then also, with the fire station, just kind of figuring out what the timing of those sequence debt is. Certainly we don't need all the money for the fire station in year one, but there's not a whole lot of reason to sit back and wait either. Some of the talk has been maybe holding back a little bit, perhaps the contingency component, and not leveraging that as you kind of work through the project and then doing what we call kind of a cleanup financing with next year. So if there's $1 million and you determine you only need 700,000 of that to get the project done, then let's only borrow 700,000 of it and not rush in and borrow for the full amount right now. So that would be a common approach for communities that might borrow every year for projects. So as we look at the current year financing, you're going to notice something a little bit unique here, given that we had started the process last year and got what we call a pre-levy in place with your FY 26 budget. We have excess funds here to throw at the first year's payment. So we're looking at, of the $12 million borrowing, about $1.3 million of that being paid off in the first year. So you'll have the room within your levy limit, as well as some of the excess funds from FY 26 to put towards a payment here in this first year. Right now, there is no forecasted TIF portion, and the sales tax increment portion. I guess I'm not sure if we're going to hit that this year or if we'll wait and do that next year. I think we've modeled it out both ways. So it's not linked in through here, but we may add the sales tax increment component in yet this year, depending on your leverage amounts. So 12.1 million. The sewer financing stuff we're still finalizing. And then normally what we've done is taken kind of a gander through a couple charts. We've got a preliminary amount. This just matches what's in your approved kind of 10-year CIP, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking through this. But I will point out a couple things that we've shifted right now. The first one, you'll see that there's $9 million of borrowing under Cascade Bridge. We have backed that down to 3 in your model right now. So the $4.5 million that's listed under tax increment financing has gone away. And then the general obligation from the debt service is currently set at $3 million. So you can see that's part of the highlighted number in 2028. As we look at the flood protection, there's also a highlighted number at $10,165,000. Noting there that the revenues from that increment cannot support the full $15 million of debt. And that's not something that's new. We've been modeling out, and it's actually improved over last year, but about 3.7 million of that will likely slide under general obligation bonds just paid with TIF. So that's what's in the modeling. And then, there are a couple things that, clearly are still up in the air. There's a park maintenance office building. There's an aquatic center, listed in there. So some of the funding, when you get into projects that are a little bit more building oriented, do kind of shift outside of our, what I call kind of your normal sustainable debt levy. So figuring out how to handle those is something that we're still working through in the plan. But knowing those are a couple years off, they don't cause me a lot of heartburn or concern right now. That's what's kind of on the preliminary list. As you kind of look out 2030 and beyond, it's more just looking at regular street maintenance program and what that might look like. There's been some talk here. There have been quite a few significantly large projects done on the street side that have been grant supported. And some of the discussions we've had internally with staff is that those made a lot of sense as the grants were available to do those and accelerate some of those projects, but, you start to get to an unsustainable. You can't take on $7 million of new capital every year and expect to live within the same debt levy. Now, if you start leaning back into some of your TIF revenues again, that might give you some more capabilities. But right now, this works pretty well in your model. As you move to the next slide, I tried to pick up some color coding just to, hopefully this is a visual. And right now, what you look at a target rate, and that's indexed off the right. And you see that orange line at the top, that basically is telling you that we're showing a $3.79 debt service levy in this scenario. Based on that levy and a normal amount of valuation growth, your light blue there is your existing debt that needs to come from there. You saw this in another table earlier, but this is a visual representation where the gray, blue, whatever color it is, that's on the top represents dollars that would fit within the 379 levy. So this is what you would want to see, some availability to take on additional projects. And so that's what we're modeling out. And then we're going to show you, based on the projects that you put in the plan on the next slide, what happens if you go through with that. Now, again, it gets a little bit convoluted here. I tried to keep the same blue as existing and then gray as available. But we do have a couple things that we're doing with the debt structure. We're not agreeing to scenarios where the city backloads debt. In other words, you pay interest only for 7 years and then you pick up principal. That's an easy way to pick up levy capacity today and hose yourself down the road. So essentially what we're trying to do is keep things that are sustainable and then push back when we think there are potential issues. In this case, and again, based on the projects that were in there, including, the aquatic center, we would see the potential need to bump up the debt service levy in order to accommodate that. There are other things you could do, which would be related to slowing down some projects or doing some more projects out of the tax increment financing bucket, where you're going to see in a couple slides you actually have a decent amount of availability. So we're seeing a little bit of a, I'll call it a compression here. If you were to ask me today what you needed to do, I would not include increasing your levy rate this year. But if you don't shift out of this plan, find TIF for some things or delay some things, you're probably going to look at the need to increase the debt service levy, 25, 30 cents in order to fund the plan in its entirety. This is not any different than the message that we had last year. I think we said 20 cents last year. It's a little bit larger this year because there's a few more projects on the list. So this, I wouldn't say this is bad news. This is just simply the reality of the way it's structured right now, able to for sure stay in FY '27 within this levy component, next year potentially needing to look at adjustments if we don't change the CIP, which I assume over the course of the next year, we'll keep modifying dates and timing. And, I'll say most of this is on me. We just haven't spent a lot of time looking at a lot of the out years in our plan right now. So Chad and Stephanie and Nick and I will get together and keep working on this. From a council perspective, while this might look concerning, I would not take this as, we're going to increase the levy rate next year. This is just living within the parameters that we put forth. It would show the need to move it forward. Certainly, before you get to that place, there will be more dialogue about how you could phase projects to fit them in or lean into TIF more. So this was just very simplistic, not trying to be too creative or outside the box in our thinking in showing this. But as you can see, as we kind of work our way out beyond 38 and beyond, there continues to be room to pay for that. So the knee jerk would be, well, don't increase it, let's just backload debt. But I just told you, we're not going to backload debt unless you understand exactly what we're doing and have a reason for that with projects. Fire stations and city buildings often hit that list of reasons why you might do a little bit of backloading or structure. You anticipate that facility to last more than 20 years. A street overlay, street improvement, if you backload the debt on a 20-year schedule, you're going to be replacing that street before you've paid off the debt on it. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm not totally against backloading, but I would say maybe we should be a little bit more aggressive. And again, it could just be a short-term thing where you need to pop the debt service levy up while you're getting through these grant-funded projects, and then after that, you have some ability to lower it back down. Chad, anything you want to add on that? I think we just haven't spent a lot of time on this, to be honest. I don't want to cause a lot of alarm here on this, but I'm just showing you what the model spits out right now. Okay. Moving on to the TIF. So this would be what's available today. So same type of thing. And all I've done here is I've actually just locked that we would not take any growth in TIF. The only thing we would do is allow areas to expire on their 20-year time frame. And so what you see here based on the existing revenues, you can see the decline from taking 3.5 million down to about 2.7 million in revenues. That's what's happening this year. And then you can see the future declines happening as well. The blue, light blue there represents existing debt, and then the gray represents the available before any new debt is structured. If you go to the next slide, we're in a much more kind of modest amount of new TIF coming into this. Unfortunately, the coloring I didn't notice it until I got it printed. But there is a difference between the gray and the blues as you move out beyond 38. It's very difficult to see, and I'll get an update on that. One of those was supposed to be tan, and it just didn't show up. So I'll get that slide updated for you all. But the thing you will see here is that, by and large, again, without doing a lot of smoothing on the debt structuring, you do end up with quite a bit of availability, even while reducing TIF income to about 1.7 million 10 years from now. So that's a significant shift in what would be happening with your TIF claim. Prior charts in other years definitely had more revenue going into the TIF. So we're still showing the ability to keep releasing TIF under your project load. All right, any questions before we move on to kind of the last component?
If you want to look at what that might mean in terms of smoothing TIF, if you go back to the budget book, when I show our comparable cities, I think I show over on the far right the percent that city is using of TIF and where we compare in that. So that might be a correlation between what's it look like as an average use of TIF compared to other cities.
So this next sequence is a little bit different. I don't have a lot of good charting here built into this, but we've got a couple sequence here. If you follow like columns 2, 3, or 3, 4, and 5, pick up your original revenues that were planned, and you see those went out to 2033. You had an amended plan for your targets with amendment number 1, and you can see those revenues then went out to 35. And then what we're planning from is actually still a little bit lower than your amended availability, and that's effectively 23.9 million of the 26.2. So that's what's forecasted to be received at this point. I actually think there's a chance you get all the way there, but for now, we're not planning on it. If you do get all the way there, you'll have a little bit more available to pay on these two projects. Right now, we're showing borrowings in 26, 27, it could be 27, 28 of 5.4 million and 6.98 million, additional 12.4, and that compares to almost $16 million of projects. So the rest of it is being made up with a GEO TIF borrowing. So if we do get through all the revenues, not need as much money in your TIF. Right now, we're not planning on that. You can see we've got debt obligations right now that cover about 8.7 million. So this is how we would factor in spending through these available revenues. This continues to outperform slightly, so that's been a positive thing for the city. There was a time when we were worried if we were going to get to 2/3 of these revenues, but the city's retail tax base has been quite strong. So testament to some good work there done through economic development teams. All right, so the last piece of this analysis then is what happens with the debt limit. A couple things going on the chart. I'm going to ask you to pay attention to the lines to start with. There's a line right across the middle that shows the 70% target. There's a moving blue line that shows your actual percentage of debt obligated. You can see that blue line does chip ahead of, in this case, just slightly above 70% for a year or two, and then it slides back under pretty significantly and pretty quickly, just indicating that, you know, your planned debt load is, you know, significantly lower than what you'll be paying off in those years. I do not pay too much attention to those numbers beyond 2035, 2036, because we're not programming more than 10 years of debt into this model. So you can ignore some of that. And I'm fairly confident there will be more projects that come along for the city beyond kind of just your street maintenance work as we work through the plan. All that being said, you know, I do think you're in a pretty good spot, much like last year's overview. So if we're going to kind of skip to any kind of summary points, nuggets you're going to hold on to. You know, I'm still keeping this in there. I almost modified this, but you know, you continue to really just have a low taxable valuation growth trend. If you were to look at over the last 20 years, your city has grown at a slower pace than a lot of other communities of your size. That has created strains on how high of taxes you need to be and just what you've been able to afford with respect to your debt limit. I think it's improving over the last couple of years, and I think it looks better going forward today than it did even 3 years ago. So that's definitely improved. Again, your debt limit forecast experienced some improvement. You know, some of your increased project costs, just some of your things that become more expensive, has been encumbered on the debt limit margin. You know, I will, you know, throw out some kudos to the work that the city has done in trying to bring the fire station project in at a very manageable cost comparative to what we've been seeing. You know, that helps these overall numbers and affordability of other projects by being diligent on the projects that you can be diligent on. And I think you guys do need to take, you know, pat yourselves on the back for the work you've done. You know, it's not easy to say, let's take restrictions on this. Let's not just borrow the maximum amount we can. It shows a lot of fiscal restraint. That's good to see on your part. I think we do need to be thoughtful regarding the use of TIF versus the debt service levy for projects. This is really kind of the first year I've kind of thrown that in there as we've started to kind of back off some of the projects slated for TIF. TIF is a tool, use it if you need to, but just understand that if we do go to a city that funds more of their CIP, not with tax increment financing dollars, then you're not necessarily going to be able to compare your debt service levy to another community who is funding their CIP with a lot more TIF revenues. So just know that comparison game can be a little bit difficult. And you got to make sure you understand what you're trying to compare. I'm not suggesting that you need to use more TIF, but just understand that as you reduce TIF, it is going to put a little more pressure on your debt service levy if you don't shift to doing less projects going forward. Otherwise, I don't think you really want to be bored with a bunch of market information on interest rates.
When are they coming down?
They have been. They have been. You know, we've seen borrowing rates below 4% on 20-year bonds. We had a city or school district sell debt last week, 378 on a 19-year debt. So certainly we're seeing a little bit improvement there on the tax exempt market. again, I'm feeling that's a little bit, we do have a little bit of market rally, flight to quality. It's a little bit hard to predict what's going to happen going forward. But there's been a lot of supply that's been met with outpaced demand. So I think, looking at selling debt this spring, should be a pretty good spot for the community. If you flip ahead to market update 6, this is going to pick up just kind of where rates are currently within kind of a 10-year range versus the average. So a little bit higher than the 10-year average, but you can see kind of versus the peaks and the low rates, it's on the short end, pretty favorable. As you move out to the long end, it's a little bit more in the middle of that range. So that blue-black kind of with the, say the squares or diamonds, represents kind of what I'll call the current yield curve for AAA credit. You're not going to quite enjoy those exact rates because you're not a AAA and you don't have, Iowa's got its own hair that would make it spread over. So even a AAA in Iowa wouldn't be directly on that line. So that kind of gives you an idea of where, there's some relative value versus the average. Certainly, we're still in a period of time where we're skewed a little bit by the lows from 2021 and 2022 on interest rates. So that 10-year history shows that. If you were to flip back now to, I'm going to take you to slide market update 3, excuse me. This is just picking up a 10-year rate, and you can see the improvement in the 10-year rate over the past year in the municipal market. So you can see we're currently at the low end on that 10-year over the last year. So, all right. I don't think I have anything else, Chad, in terms of big picture things, but always good to kind of give an update. Again, I think from a timing standpoint, we're still looking at potentially accessing the market here early May would be my guess. It could go a little bit faster. In terms of, things for next week, going to work with the city, make sure you've got your 379-ish rate built into your budget before it goes out for the proposed levy notice. We'll then follow up with the hearings as you kind of work through your budget approval. Obviously, don't need a hearing on the fire station. That was voter approved, but, there are other projects that will have some public hearings coming forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody have any further questions or comments for Travis? It's a lot to digest, but.
Yeah, sorry, it
Well,
is
that's
always
all
a
right.
lot.
It's always very illuminating, so thank you.
And we appreciate you coming over.
I
Yes,
told you
definitely.
I wouldn't get through the couple slides as fast as they did the fire updates.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Travis.
We appreciate your guidance. Let's see, moving on to board and commission reports. Start on my left. Tim, did you have any?
No.
Annie?
No, I did not.
I did not as well. Kay? No. Robert? No. Okay, then moving on to appointments, we have, looks like 4 appointments. First up is City Planning Commission, Brian Bross. His term will expire 4/7/2026. He's expressed interest in serving another term. His requested the council consider reappointing Brian to a new 3-year term, which will expire April 7th, 2029. Historic Preservation Commission, Stephanie Breakville's term will expire on 3/16/2026. She's expressed interest in serving another term. Is requested the council consider reappointing Stephanie to a new 3-year term expiring on 3/16/2029. On the Tree Advisory, Lisa Locke. His term expires 2/21/2026. She has expressed interest in serving another term. It's requested the council consider reappointing Lisa to a new 3-year term expiring 2/21/2029. And then lastly, but not least, is Rebecca LaBraque's term. I'm sorry, Rebecca, LaBreca, if I've got that screwed up. Expired on 2/21/2026. She has expressed interest in serving another term. and that's also on the Tree Advisory Board. It is requested council consider reappointing Rebecca to a new 3-year term expiring 2021. Sorry, I hate butchering the name because it's the only thing a person really truly owns. So I apologize about that. So we'll vote on those. Moving on to the proposed regular agenda for March 2nd, 2026. The first up will be consider a public hearing, which will be consideration of plans and specs for 2026 Domeland Street Storm Sewer Project. Mr. McGregor, fire away.
Good evening. In your packets, you had a fairly lengthy plan set. I will put an image here of just the project that we're going to go over. But just kind of a layout, the schedule, approving plans and specs would be next week. We would receive bids April 7th, and then go to council for the awarding of that bid April 20th. And then we plan the contractor start date sometime in mid to late May. This is a fiscal year 27 budgeted project paid for with sewer funds. So what we're installing here is Highway 34 rather is at the bottom of the screen. We have quite a bit of overland drainage currently at the end of the cul-de-sac of Domeland. We would install a new structure with some curb and gutter, some pipage that would go underneath Lucas Avenue and into the DOT right-of-way and connect to some existing storm sewer infrastructure there. The expected project cost is $145,000. Paid out of sewer funds, relatively a smaller project, but still kind of entangled with the different entities that we got to work with. So I can answer any questions.
That, the one diagram AA looks pretty doggone rough. As you go in the packet, there's a little picture there in the lower right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Any questions or concerns on this for Mr. McGregor? Moving on. Number 2 will be a motion for the final adoption of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 73 speed regulations of the Burlington Municipal Code. Mr. McGregor?
This will be the third and final reading on ordinance dealing with speed, as kind of explained in the past. The first section of that is a reduction, or change rather, in the speed time from the ordinance and the posted time out in the world. So the time will be posted on the signage from 7:30 to 4:30 on the school signage. The more recent change, and probably the bigger discussion out of it, is the speed limit on Mason Road. I can go back through that PowerPoint slide if you would like me to. Essentially what it boils down to is changing the speed limits that are currently posted at 35 and then changes to 25. Kind of a smoothing of the speed limit, I would call it, to 30 mile an hour for the duration of Mason Road from Roosevelt to the S-curves or Star Avenue. And then a resuming of 30 from Olive Street to Summer Street. So if you'd like, I can go for more in-depth at the council meeting if there's any commentary. Can't imagine we've had pretty little commentary, but
Yeah, well,
I don't
mean,
want to
we-
change something like speed limits on that area and not go over that with the public or you. But
There's been some discussion on social media, but I think it's been pretty well quelled just by, hey, here's what it is. And, because everybody has their knee-jerk reaction. And I think it's been explained pretty well. So, I don't have any thoughts or concerns moving forward. The only reason I wanted to leave this for me, as a third and final reading is just because it is a change. So, any thoughts or concerns for Mr. McGregor? Voice them out now.
I haven't seen a lot of discussion about it. I don't think there's a lot of issues from at least the circle I run with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would-
Let's be honest, they're still gonna speed.
Oh, yeah.
But there are people that speed regardless.
She admits it. No, hey, I didn't say, oh, yeah,
So-
me.
If there's no other questions, upon its approval next week, we would have to wait until the ordinance is posted. And then we will put out press releasers before the actual install and changes of signage. So And then they'll be demarked with little red flags on either side of the 30-mile-an-hour zones.
Okay.
So it'd be throughout the whole corridor, essentially.
Did you have something you
Yeah,
wanted
I
to-
think people, I didn't realize some people didn't know what the speed limit was. They already thought it was at 30, and I was just like, okay, well, that solves that. And I think some people are also confused about the 4:30 from 4 o'clock, and that's just has to do with the actual ordinance
Yeah.
as far as that goes, but that is also going to change the time on the school zones from 5
As posted.
as posted,
posted.
yes. So I think there's just a couple things, and people, aren't gonna be happy, but
Anything else?
Well, if I need to go into depth on anything next week, please let me know. And
What do you think, council? Does he need to go over it all
I think
again?
we've covered it plenty.
I don't
haven't we?
think he needs to do it
Unless
unless
there's some questions.
there is questions from the
I'll be
public.
locked and loaded for next
Yes.
week.
Okay, that's
Perfect.
better
Love it.
to be prepared. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Number 3 is a resolution approving amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with HR Green, Inc. for flood mitigation program phase 7. Look at my room and
So this is an amendment to our current contract. The city hired HR Green to carry forward the next phase of the flood mitigation. We're actually wrapping up the 2 final stages of design into one grouping. So the previous contract had HR Green taking us to 30% design, just so we can kind of get a contract under basis and understand where we're going to move forward. And so this amendment in front of you with HR Green would take us to final design and bid plans. And that contract is in the packet. But to go over what this will cover, it is design work that would extend the flood wall, permanent and temporary, down Market Street towards Main Street. It would involve, we call it a mixing chamber, but essentially what it is an area south of the auditorium where we have to currently HESCO should the river go over 18 foot. What we would do is we would eliminate that need moving forward by some sealing work. There's big storm sewers underneath there, and so we would have to seal it. And then the largest portion, money-wise and design-wise, is the stormwater lift stations. And so when the river gets high, the river comes back through the storm intakes and manholes. And so we would install a secondary storm line that would be valved off during high river events, and any rain events that would occur during that period would then use that alternative storm line, go to the stormwater lift station, and then be pumped over top of the wall. So there's a lot of work that's involved in that stormwater lift station, and it will involve some install of new storm lines down Valley Street, and much to my chagrin, in and around the Main and Valley Street intersection. We need to be able to access those intakes. So my goal is to minimize the amount of disruption around that brand-new pavement, but we still have to tap into those storm lines. And so we'll have to bring that storm line across on Valley Street, and then the same will happen for Market. There on the corner of Market and Front is probably the biggest problem. But anyway, the point of this is that HR Green's contract is amended to include this expected cost for this is $929,000. It's relative to what Mr. Squires was talking about with the flood wall mitigation projects and the sales tax increment. This is ultimately going to get paid for by that money source. So
Okay.
I can answer any questions. It's a fairly detailed contract. There's a lot of information there, but
Council, thoughts or concerns?
Is this the last phase, or is there?
this is the last piece of it. So there was some work to be expected to be done at the wastewater treatment plant. But I think the original estimating didn't understand that we would have to have a lift station there that would have to be able to handle the full effluent load of the wastewater treatment plant when a wall would be up. And that estimate on that pumping was $13 million. So that was essentially our total budget just with the lift station at the plant. So after talking with Tim about the operations there during flood times, we think that we can get by with doing some other things.
Okay.
So most of this work is being done downtown.
Okay, any other thoughts, concerns?
None.
Moving on, number 4, resolution, you want to get a drink or anything, Nick? Resolution authorizing street lighting modifications for associated with the Summer Street relocation project.
So when we went out to bid with this work on Summer Street, the street lighting is owned and operated by Alliant Energy, and so it wasn't a part of our design per se. We had conversations with Alliant at the end of the day. We don't want to own and operate the street lights that are along there, and so we have to go through this process to approve the installation of new, a lot of them are different, light poles to service the corridor. And so in front of you is a resolution that would approve the installation of light poles up and down the corridor. The capital costs for this is $120,000, and then we have a reoccurring base rate that we pay for each of the lights. I did put a slideshow or some images. So the purple points are the existing light infrastructure. How did that get on there? I dropped, yeah, can you take that out of there for me? I don't know how I did that. I must have copied it twice and pasted it, didn't look at it. That was the storm sewer line. So the purple are existing lights. Most of them are housed on the north side, on the west side of the road. The gold ones are the ones that would be approved through this resolution. And so you can tell there are a significant increase in lights. So there are currently 18 lights up and down the corridor from Harrison to Kestner. This resolution would approve and authorize the installation of 31 lights. So there is a fairly high frequency of lights, or rather, there is not a lot of lighting on certain corridor or sections of this corridor. So it's a visual impact more than anything to try and show you where the old lights are and where the new ones will be. The other piece is that most of the lighting, or power rather, the overhead power is going underground, other than the area where ITC owns the poles. Alliant is simply moving their electrical to their poles. So the existing overhead power should all go underground. And you've seen some of that start. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the corridor area in between the fire station number 2 and the driveways to the armory / airport. There's this big section here where it's in the flight path of the airport. We tried to submit lighting requests through the FAA, and they were all denied through that corridor. So they have a height restriction. It's hard to see, so I put it in duplicate. There might be some sections where no light poles could ever go because of the height. However, I think there's an opportunity that if we want to, as a city, install additional lighting that would be under a certain elevation. We'd have to go back through the FAA permit application to get that. And it would be something that Alliant would not own and operate. So it would be secondary to the lighting that you're approving through this resolution. But I wanted to ask if it's something that you think is worthwhile for us to look at, and if it is, I would have our staff start working on kind of a layout. We would have to have some electrical lines installed for these types of lights, and then we'd have to figure out what kind of lights and then go back through the permitting process. But I put an image of the old Jefferson Street lights. We still own all of those light poles. We have over 100 of them. So just in a short conversation with my staff, we think that that could be an opportunity if you would like to explore this section. What I think is different from an issue we had in the past on Summer where we had a bicyclist that was hit in that area is that any bicyclist or pedestrian will be on a separated trail network rather than where we had the narrow roadway before, just kind of everybody had to be on the road. So trying to work through this as a conversation. There's more pieces to it than I can really maybe explain, but I just wanted to show you a kind of a gap in the lighting as it is now with Alliance poles.
Well, council, you can weigh in here. For me, I at least like to look at it.
Okay.
Just because as much as we would love to see them use the separated trail, we know darn well there will be people that don't. If we could put something in there shorter, and I don't care if it's, even if we could put a different type lamp on our existing light where some kind of shade that focuses it downward so it doesn't go up in the sky and bother the planes. I don't want to create more work for staff, but I'd at least like to know, do we have the option? That's for me. Council, you can weigh in and give him what you want there.
I would like to see at least planning for lighting there. And I wonder if even like bollards or something really low, but would light the way, I don't.
And so I guess my purpose behind at least a light pole of this magnitude would be that it would be dual purpose for trail opportunity, but
Sure.
also for the roadway,
Right.
right? So I think bollard lighting would be valuable for the trail piece, but it doesn't
but
bring
too
much.
low for the, yeah, okay.
Would the opportunity exist to use it on the trail as it jogs back over towards Madison when we do the rest of the?
So I think that opens a bigger conversation maybe than I'm ready for. But as Eric and Jesse and I have discussed, we have very little lighting on much of our trail network in town other than areas that are covered by street lighting. I think there is an opportunity, to be fair. It's just, what do we want to install along our trail network moving forward?
Right, I like that you have, what'd you say, 100 and some of these things? So I like reoccurring themes, so I would, if you were gonna install them along the length, I mean, let's see if this would work, but if you were gonna do it here, I think it would be neat to tie that old piece of Jefferson Street into the opportunity to have those same lights elsewhere. That's long-term, but I like the idea of it, so I would say look into this.
How about this, Nick? Because I don't, like I said, I really don't, let's at least ask the FAA.
Yeah.
Is it doable? And if they say, no, not so, then don't waste any time on it.
Yeah,
But
there
if
you
they
go.
say, yeah, we'd be willing to look at a shorter light or a different style light or spaced out different, it is concerning having that dark portion there.
It's really tough.
So if you can get that ask and approval, then you could come back and we could decide, okay, how much time do we want to spend on it? Is that fair?
Yes.
So what the way FAA operates is they
Yeah.
will have to see a permit
Oh, I
application
see.
in front of them before. They're a federal agency, right? They, I think that's all I need to say. We would have to do a little bit of legwork.
Okay.
But I would say that we would try and submit, I mean, you could go with a varied height type pole, but I don't know that makes any sense. I'd like to see a pole that would meet the requirements throughout the whole, because it varies
Yeah.
as it goes through there on what you're allowed to have for height. So
Okay.
I will have staff look at what fixtures could go on there. I mean, the other alternative is you could look at a different type of pole other than the one I presented. We have some poles down on the riverfront that are on the north side of the bridge there that, in my eyes, would match
Really
some of
work
what we
better.
also have. They're also a low enough pole that you could probably reduce the height fairly easily. The problem with these poles is if they're too high, there's not much
They
changing or
just throw it
going
right up in
anywhere.
the air, right.
The other part is we have these on hand. They would need to be sandblasted and repainted, but you would save quite a bit of money just because you have the material on hand. So with that, unless there's any, I'll explore what it would take
Okay.
to
Is that all right with
resubmit
council?
an application.
Yes.
I'm all right with him looking at it.
Okay.
I don't, my first gut reaction is I really don't see the necessity. There hasn't been any lighting out there. I know there's the addition of the trail. But I've lived out there for most of my 68 years, and it's been the same amount of light as what there will be when this project's done. In
I
that
think there will
area.
be quite a bit more lighting
Yeah, that's true.
in
With 30
this,
more-
on this corridor, you know, just with the resolution that's in front
Yeah,
of
with the
you.
31 lights, that is quite a bit.
I should have clarified a little more between
In that
the fire station and,
Correct.
and that area where they're not allowing you to put lights now,
Yep.
has been that way for a long, long time.
I would be surprised if they.
How many feet is that, Nick, do you know, right off?
The distance between there and there, it's probably 250, 300 foot.
Glow-in-the-dark trail?
You know, I floated the idea too, and I got shot down pretty quickly by our engineer folks. I think it would look sweet, but I even wanted to put it in the roadway, but
Yeah.
Anything else further that's serious? Thanks, Chad, for the. We'll just put Chad out there with glow
proven
wands every
technology.
night.
They have it in places
right.
that are nice.
Moving on to number 5, resolution approving purchase of REHIG. REHIG Pacific Vision System to include service verification, sorry, for the city of Burlington solid waste fleet. See, well, one word throws me off. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
then you just.
So this
in.
resolution would approve the capital installation, but then our ongoing use of cameras on our garbage trucks. So Rarig is the trash can vendor that we've purchased all the trash cans with. It is also a software service that we pay for on an annual basis to keep track of our inventory and then do trash can swaps and such. And so the software piece of it would be an extension of what we're currently using and would allow for images to be taken out in the field and patched through a software system. So Julie, whoever is there at the time, to be able to have images sent to them. So I think I probably more eloquently say it in the memo, but one of the struggles that we deal with out in the field is that our guys will see an issue, either trash that's not set out, trash that's violating one of our several rules, and they have to take pictures with their cell phones and try and send them via text to Julie. With this installation, we'll be able to hit an event button in the truck. The picture is GPS tagged and will be sent kind of instantaneously through the web, and she can receive that. And so she's not caught in this weird place between, resident A, who says, y'all didn't pick up my trash, and then the staff saying, well, it wasn't set out, or whatever. And so she's pit between the citizen or the customer and our staff who's saying two different things. And so at least if we have imagery that validates our people. The other piece is that the newer cans all have RFID tags in the cans. And so the system will allow to know when that trash can is picked up, either the side loader or the rear loader, to know that that trash can has been serviced for that day. So we'll actually give a running image of where we are in the system to be able to understand that. There's also some safety piece that I really like about the camera system and having access to that, and just kind of, helping reduce some liabilities. So with that, the purchase price of the capital items is $76,300, and then there's a reoccurring annual cost of $12,600. And this would all be paid for out of the solid waste fund, which you pay for on your monthly bill. So I can answer any more questions. There's a little more detail in the memo.
Thoughts or concerns, council?
I just had one, for the annual cost, is there a contract that, locks that cost in for a certain amount of years, or is it just,
I think it's an annual
Okay.
reoccurring.
okay, so it
And
could
we-
change
and-
next year?
It could, but we haven't seen that. We've had
Okay.
Rarig ever since we
Okay.
had the new trash cans, and we pay an annual contract for the website piece of it, and they've stayed pretty consistent. So,
Okay.
And I was just say, use this system for other stuff that you already have, right?
correct. And so there are other options out there.
Right.
But I don't want to make it too convoluted with,
It's
you
better
have
to
the Rarig
use
software
yeah.
and then you have the Routeware software. It would be nice to have everything housed. And one of the other pieces to this is with the bulky item pickup or the citywide replacement is that we'll actually schedule with the forms that I'll talk about at the end, that person's pickup into Rarig. And so we'll generate kind of charting or mapping of that, of what the bulky items look like. So it's kind of all wrapped into one. I like having it pieced together.
Any other thoughts, concerns? All right. Number 6, resolution approving the removal and replacement of control joints and concrete repairs to the Public Works building.
This resolution would approve the work at the Public Works building to MTS Contracting. This is a project that is in the current CIP, split between road use tax and sewer funds. And so when they built the structure, it was done with precast building on the front, and then the joints along with the big main, I don't know what to call it. This is helping fix some maintenance types issues that we've seen leaks occur and such. So it's over a certain dollar threshold. We felt it necessary to bring it through council.
Thoughts, concerns? Please have a seat for a little bit.
I will.
Number 7 is a resolution approving the side agreements between IAFF Local 301 and City of Burlington.
Chief Toops is bringing this one forward.
Okay.
We continue to work with IAFF Local 301 on union negotiations. The bargaining agreement's not complete, but time is of the essence for this proposal, so Chief's bringing this one forward at this time.
Yeah, good evening again, and it's time to give Nick a break. But yeah, thanks, Chad, for mentioning some of that. So, yep, tonight for your consideration, tonight's work session is, I've proposed and sent, obviously, the council packet has a council item inside it that goes over the background of this scenario, what we've been kind of seeing and doing, and I got some additional information that's not in there. Definitely happy to share. But in the previous budget sessions, and especially last year, I did kind of hint toward this type of thing, and we're going to have to start proactively thinking on how we as a fire department are going to continue this service, a service in which we do like to provide. But again, it does come with challenges, right? So if you've had a chance to read the council item with the background, some of my recommendation, justification, and fiscal impact, I would maybe, could we start there? If you have any questions,
Sure.
and I'd love to answer that.
This is, all of these expenses are gonna be covered by the people that need the service, correct?
Say that one more time.
The people that need this service or that are asking for the service are going to pay for this service.
Correct.
We're
Yep.
not, there's not gonna be any payroll issues coming out of city tax.
No, so to further answer that, yep, so an event organizer, right, that's hosting the event, or the company that's what they do, this is their business, we invoice them based on the hours that went into it, the physical man hours. And if you can see in the chart that I provided, in addition to the actual hours of service, we add another hour, and that's basically the hour that isn't, you can't see that on the call sheet that has a recorded start time and a recorded end time, but this is the hour that in leading up to the event and then to conclude said event, we just add that hour. And we've been doing that since the very beginning of this. Never had any issues or problems, but yes, whoever that event organizer or company is, the invoice or bill goes directly to them and they pay this.
Any other thoughts or concerns, council? Great question, Tim. I don't have anything. Mr. Byrd, anything to add?
No. Well, sorry. Yeah. Once we get to conclusion of our bargaining with the the bargaining unit, this is part of our conversations, but again, time is of the essence. So we are negotiating this term into the agreement, but this
We need
comes
to have it.
first.
Okay.
So this would fold into the agreement once it's completed.
Okay. Anyone has any thoughts they come up with, get a hold of Chief or Chad. Number 8, does that give you
Did you go
enough?
by?
Well, I was totally prepared to answer a whole bunch
No,
of
I
questions.
think,
It makes sense to
it makes
adjust
sense
those
that they're
things.
covering the cost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
You
if you,
know,
I don't want to keep
we
going
are
if I
not
don't
here
have
to-
to, but
down.
if you look at my chart,
Sold.
We aren't here to
Okay.
over micromanage.
that was easy. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Was there anything on the fees, or you have Exhibit A,
Yeah. So Exhibit A, if you're sitting there wondering, well, why is the dedicated ambulance standby fee associated with this illustration of fees? It just is. It has been for as far back as I can tell, and this was all designed and built before my time. But these are essentially our ambulance-related fees, and they're all on this sheet. And when we go to change these type of fees, it comes with council approval too. But this is just where we find this language and the actual fee that we charge. So I just wanted to attach that for, again, good communication.
Yeah.
So,
all right, that explains it.
well, thanks so much.
Every once in a while, I'd like to give you a softball.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, number 8, resolution approving a contract between Local 7176, the Communication Workers of America, AFL-CIO, and the City of Burlington. Mr. Byrd?
Actually, I'd like to combine these two, if I may,
Okay.
because they're very similar.
Can
And
you
but
want me
I'll-
to read this other one?
I'll point out
real
the
quick?
differences. So
Okay.
another one, so that was item 8.
Item
Item-
9 is the resolution approving the contract between Local 828 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, in the City of Burlington. Now you can cover them both.
Yeah, thank you. So, item number 8, the resolution with Local 7176 is what we would call the CWA. That typically covers our police, it does cover our police department and public safety in the police department. And those men and women in that department. Item number 9, the resolution for Local 828 is what we call the AFSCME. That would cover basically street, sewer, public works, but also there's an MOU agreement in there for transit, and that's required by federal requirements, and also the library is kind of part of that group, although they have a standalone separate agreement. There were a couple of things I wanted to, before I get into that, just kind of cover some significant changes to Chapter 20, just to give you kind of a background or a basis for how and why we negotiate bargaining units, because we don't do this very often. So we're coming out of a 5-year agreement for all 3 of our units. Again, so police, I mentioned fire's not done yet, so that's why you're not seeing that one here. And then the AFSCME, or Public Works, Transit, and Library. They're all 3 coming out of 5-year agreements, so we don't see this very often. What we're proposing here are 3-year agreements, but these are all under Iowa Code Chapter 20, which is the Public Employment Relations Act. It's part of that code section in Iowa law that governs collective bargaining between public employees and employers. It defines how bargaining units are formed, what topics must, may, or may not be bargained, and that's new language since 2017. During that legislative session in House File 291, there were significant changes in how bargaining happens in Iowa. The reform narrowed the scope of mandatory bargaining for most units to base wages only, and regulated many former topics like insurance, vacations, and evaluation procedures to permissive status, which means employers and unions may agree to negotiate but are not required to, and it made others prohibited by law or excluded from bargaining, such as retirement systems, dues checkoffs, and payroll deductions. In practice, this reduced what local governments must negotiate with non-public safety and gave employers and arbitrators stricter limits on what can be resolved through bargaining and binding arbitration. So I just wanted to give you that context. This is all kind of regulated by Chapter 20. Again, we don't see it very often. The first item, number 8, Local 7176, CWA is our police department. So we're proposing a 3-year agreement at a 4% COLA, or cost of living adjustment. And then market adjustments for officers only. Market adjustments to the base wage in each of 3 years of 5%, 2%, and 2%, again, for officers only. And adjustments to overtime rates for some circumstances, similar to what we just talked about in the fire department for special events and those types of things. Health insurance changes to better reflect current practice. We belong to a 2080 consortium group called CABCO, and that group performs very well. Some of the older health insurance language in that agreement wasn't really keeping pace with how CABCO was performing. So we were able to amend some of that language there. Employees will pay 7% of premium, up to an escalating cap each of the 3 years. So they know where they would be given certain scenarios. Then there's some minor language updates and changes, and it codifies 2 outstanding side agreements, or MOUs. One of them was the hiring incentives, and the other is an acknowledgement of lateral hires and seniority rights within that. Both of those MOUs have been folded into the new agreement. So that's the CWA, which is, number 9, Local 8. No, I had that right, sorry. Local 7176. The other one, number 9, make sure I read this right, because I'm looking at the acronyms on my sheet and it's got it all spelled out over there. AFSCME, Local 828, is the same 3-year agreement. This one's at 3% COLA, or cost of living adjustment. There's some minor base wage, but it's not across the board. It's not for everyone. It's for a couple of positions here and there. There's some minor language updates and changes. The MOU for transit, again, because that's a federally required parameter there. You see the changes in the health insurance, again, to better reflect best practice. That was bargained in that agreement, but we will see that reflective in the entire agreement for Public Works and Sewer as well as library. With that being, employees pay 7% of the premium up to an escalator for each of the 3 years capped. And then the library, that's approved by the Board of Trustees, but it's essentially the same as the regular AFSCME group. So those are the 2 units that are completed today. As I mentioned earlier, we're still negotiating with Fire IAF 301. So we would ask for council to approve those. They've both been ratified by the bargaining units, so we have signed copies.
Okay,
Any questions?
questions, thoughts, concerns?
I have a comment, Mayor.
Yeah,
This will definitely put us up in a fair or even above fair salary range for police officers based on other local agencies. It's going to put us, for somebody that has 8 years of service, about $8,000 ahead of what the competition is in the local area. And I think that's imperative for where we need to be to get our ranks filled. Am I pretty close on that, or?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I haven't looked at it that way, but through the negotiating process, it was very important to both sides that we be more competitive, given our number of officers down. And I think it is a fair contract, and I think it will do those things that we wanted it to do, which was work on recruitment and retention. Sorry. Yeah, I got the mayoritis today.
God, I like that. Yeah.
Bang that cow.
If there aren't any other questions, I do have a request that the council consider item number 3. number 5, number 7, 8, and 9 for consent agenda.
Oh, hold on. Let me.
3,
5, 7, 8, and 9.
You're
7,
gonna
8,
make me
9.
go all the way back to the beginning, you wanna tell me what they are?
So, sorry.
It's
Number
the
3
HRE
is
agreement.
the flood mitigation, Phase 7, design work, amending the agreement with HR Gree. That's a contract for services, professional services agreement. Number 5 is the RARIG system for the fleet management and solid waste. 7, 8, and 9 are the bargaining or wage and labor discussion items.
How'd we handle the other wage and labor? Because didn't we already pass one? Or we
No.
talked about one? Okay, so these are all 3.
They're all 3 and they're all new.
Council, what do you say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hang on, I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Which ones?
3, which is HR Green.
Yeah,
5 is the solid waste camera system.
Nick's stuff and their stuff.
okay.
7 is a resolution with the firefighters on the overtime pay.
For special events.
Yeah, special events. 8 is a resolution of the contract on the PD. And 9 would be the resolution on the contract for local 828,
Street sewer, public
street
works,
sewer,
library.
I
public
would
works.
put 6 in there too.
Did you say 6?
No, you didn't, but what was
That's
six?
want
the
6 in
repair
there?
of the building. and
Oh,
I-
the repair of the building?
I think it's imperative that we
All
repair
right,
the building.
I'm fine with 6 being in there too.
It's routine. You gotta fix your stuff.
That's what happens if you don't
If you don't do
repair
it.
it. Then it falls apart.
I want to,
You want to think about it, Tim, and let
no,
it know?
I don't want to take, I don't want to take 3 off. I was confused enough myself when I was reading through that I think it can be
The
discussed
HR
again. It's brief.
The
won't take
HR
long.
Green one? You don't want to
Yeah,
take that one off?
no.
Okay,
We're talking $1 million increase in it.
okay.
Yeah, I'm good with 6
5.
going there. 5, I'm fine with.
Okay.
The side agreement with the firefighters, I'm okay with, but the other 2, I'd like to, I want to see a public hearing on that.
Just if nothing else, to explain it to people what we're trying to do, correct?
Sure.
Right.
I would agree with that on those 2.
Okay.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of support, particularly for the
Yeah.
police department, and
Well, we've been chirping quite a time about we need to get our pay up. I think it's worth discussing and covering once more. So I would agree. Council, we're good? Mr. Byrd, did you get all those? All
I
right.
did, thank you.
Whatever.
Proposed consent agenda for March 2nd, 2026. First will be a resolution for nuisance abatements of various properties. As always, if you have questions, get a hold of Eric. His crew, as noted earlier, is doing great stuff. Thank you for your work, nuisance department. Number 2 is a resolution approving the renewal of a taxi cab vehicle for hire license for Robin Canova, doing business as A to Z Taxi LLC. Number 3, you can stop me on any of these if you want to talk or pull them off the consent. Number 3 is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with McClure Engineering for the Summer Street to Dankworth Park Trail Connector Project. Eric, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Jesse had the memo in the packet, but this is for construction or engineering design for the trail from Summer Street to Madison Avenue. It is $132,500 using McClure Engineering, who's doing the remaining of Summer Street project. Just an update on funding for the project. We did receive a TAP grant in the amount of $750,000, a REAP grant of $125,000, and we have our local option sales tax as our local match at $150,000. So we have $1.25 million for the project. With the engineering and estimated construction, we're about $950,000 now. We don't have a design, so we don't have final cost, but right now, based on grant funding and local match, we have funding to cover the project. So.
Okay. Council, you all right with that staying on consent?
yeah, I'll swallow hard on that one. We've talked about it a lot of times.
Okay. Then, let's see, that ends that. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Dates for public hearings, this will be March 16th, 2026. First to be a consideration of an ordinance rezoning property located at 1202 Patterson Street from R4 multi-family residential zoning district to M1 light industrial zoning project, or district, sorry. Number 2 would be a consideration of vacating and selling a portion of Court Street right-of-way located east of North Main Street, Burlington, Iowa. Number 3 is consideration of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 163, nuisance, environmental nuisances, City of Burlington Municipal Code. Sorry, I was trying to read something else at the same time. Number 4 is public hearing, I'm sorry, I was going back. Number 4 is public hearing previously scheduled by City Council, and that's consideration of City of Burlington proposed property tax levy for fiscal year July 1st, 2026, June 30th, 2027, and that'll be April 6th, 2026. Future discussion items will be the Vet Ride Transit Program. That'll be featuring Jocelyn Gonzalo Williams of Reliance Group, and that'll be March 30th. That's the end of our work session. We'll go around and get the last thoughts on that. Mr. Tislin, anything
Plug in,
else
you
for
can,
development?
sure, deadline's passed, but you can still sign up for the Shamrock Shuffle. And just want to, we have a couple openings in Parks and Development, so if anyone's interested, we have a Code Inspector 1 position and a Ground Superintendent at the golf course position open. So if you know of anyone interested, have them reach out to the myself or submit an application online.
Got anything to say about Patrick Bork?
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep.
I'll take care of it. Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay,
Another superhero.
never mind.
Were you raising your mouse for a reason or just resend it? Oh, okay, all right. Is that it, Eric? Okay. Ken, anything from Waterworks? Not tonight. Okay, Tim, anything else from wastewater? No. Brittany, good to have you back. Library?
The library board met last week on Wednesday, and did approve the ASME contract for the library union, so that is taken care of. As of last week, Iowa leads the nation with anti-library legislation, and Friday was the final deadline for this first portion of the legislative season. 3 of the 9 anti-library bills did pass. So this Wednesday at 1 p.m., the Library Board's Advocacy Committee will be hosting a public meeting, and we will be going over House Bill 2622, House File 2324, and Senate File 2293. All of these bills are outlined on the library's advocacy website. The one that we're looking the closest at is 2622, House File 2622. This is what we're calling the omnibus library bill. It would do all of what the other 9 bills proposed in one package. So it would move governance from library boards to you all, and then it would require that the new advocacy board, or the new advisory board, review every item in the collection to determine whether or not it's age appropriate. So currently, the obscenity code is what we're held to. We have nothing legally obscene in any of our libraries, but this is a new age-appropriate requirement that they have. And just to give you a little bit of a time frame, if every item had to be read by a volunteer trustee, it would take us years to get. We have 130,000 items in the collection. It's just an unreasonable ask, and as are many of the things in this bill. So we're taking it very seriously because it has passed that first funnel, and there's enough people that are behind this that we're starting to look at it and put together some talking points for how it would impact us locally here in Burlington and what would be our response to this bill if it does pass. I will say that if it passes as it is currently written, the only reasonable way I can see us complying with it is to not let anyone under 18 on the property. That's how extreme the bill is.
Right.
So I have been up in Des Moines quite a bit the last 3 weeks, engaging with our legislators and trying to give them some insight for how we work and how we do protect kids and how we curate and manage and maintain our collections. And I would invite anybody who's interested to join us this Wednesday at 1 o'clock to discuss that bill as well as the other two that have passed the funnel.
Where at the library?
In one of the
Meeting room A.
What's that?
Meeting room A.
Meeting room A. I do want to let you know that I've been kind of following what's going on, and I have sent out quite a few emails.
Thank you.
This round. I've been following you and Sam Helmick on your journey trying to protect our libraries from, what was the word that we used when you gave your little speech?
Overzealous.
Not overzealous, just the understanding of what it is they're asking and what, it's like they're making something up to do to have something to do. Literacy is really what we're talking about. I just don't feel like, I feel like they're making up a problem to solve when there isn't one, and I've voiced that opinion many times recently, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse.
Well, kind of what we were talking about with the tax bill earlier this evening. We can say all the things to our elected officials, but it's up to them at this point to vote for bills that would make Burlington better. Our local officials have to think about what's locally best for us. So we're at the point in the legislative process where public engagement is over, and now it's just the legislators talking back and forth with one another. So I would encourage you, if you are in the same space or have regular communication with our reps, please remind them that our library is doing some stellar things, that I am always available for comment. I have yet to be contacted by any of our legislators regarding any of these bills, and I'm more than happy to chat with any of them about this issue. So,
Well, my kids are all readers, and I trust them at the library, and I trust the materials you guys check out to them, and I know that's a safe place for my children regardless, so I appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Bernie.
I would also point out that I've written several letters because I, as a city council person, do not want to have to be responsible for reading 100,000 items.
read them all, Bill.
No, I haven't.
you have to reread them.
I managed to read maybe 50 books a year, and so the thought
It
of
would take
having
years.
to evaluate 110,000 items is just mind-boggling, and
It's a big ask.
I wouldn't want to have to do that any more than I would want to have to run the waterworks or run the public works department. We, as a city council, we hire staff, people who are extremely competent to do the work of our city, and this just frustrates me incredibly to think that some legislator doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
Is Tracy still here? Let's suffice to say, sometimes talking to legislators is like training your puppy not to pee on the floor. You got to smack it in the eyes, and then it looks at you and says, "What did I do wrong?" And then eventually it gets it when you hit a swat of the paper.
It's like
I'm
7,
sorry.
8.
Meeting is
yeah.
still recorded.
I know it's still recorded, and that's the way I feel about it, because when we've been at Southeast Iowa, it's all right, you guys could, I'll get myself in trouble, I'll get myself out. When we've been at Southeast Iowa and you talk to these legislators, you just hit with a blank slate sometimes. You guys can't be serious.
They glass over.
I think they do a lot of good work, so thank you for that, but I think there are sometimes they just lose the thread. And that's the end of my editorial comment. And that doesn't matter what side of the party aisle you're on, they're all that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yep. Well, Wednesday, 1 o'clock, I'd be happy to chat more about any of these if you got questions.
You're a hero.
Thank you.
Hey, council, before I get to the chiefs and Nick and Chad, what I was trying to reread when I stumbled around is number 3 in the consent, which is the resolution approving a professional services agreement with McClure Engineering for the Summer Street Dankworth Trail project. When Tim voiced a little bit of concern about it, I will be honest, what was rolling through my mind is there were a lot of questions on social media about the grant and how it applied, and I think for the 5 minutes it takes, it'd be worthwhile for us to be on the regular agenda, just so we can cover how that works again, okay, Eric?
Yeah, and we
And
will
so-
have a plans and specs
Yeah,
hearing
so
later too,
we'll have
be
plans and
additional.
specs, so I'd like to,
Yes,
I'd like to
let
put that one
us.
back on the, regular agenda, Chad.
Done.
Okay, now, we'll get back to on track. Deputy Chief, anything?
No, sir.
Okay.
see you.
Chief Toops, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Nick, Public Works? And I'm sorry about my editorial comment there, Brittany, but it's just sometimes so frustrating.
Think what it is to be the librarian.
I treat my dogs better than that, actually.
As if I haven't spoken enough tonight. I did want to give you a little bit of showing of our website and a little bit of the form that we've developed for bulky item pickup. And so this website is live. The form is not right this second. So we're prepared to March 1 go live. We've had a couple of tests or dummy applications or forms submitted. But essentially, everything you need to know about what we're going to do moving forward is on the website. So we have all the acceptable items, what items we are not going to accept, and then the guidelines for setting it out.
May I make a suggestion where it says, go back a little bit more, regular household garbage, put a parenthetical thing that says, put it in your garbage can.
Sounding an awful lot like Don Fitting right there.
Make sure,
Awful lot.
but the lid needs to be fully closed there.
Well,
That's
No
my
snow
Dawn.
coating.
That's my Dawn.
I understand that, but
You missed Dawn Fitting saying, make sure the lid is fully closed.
Yes. Well,
Every
I
budget,
mean-
every budget cycle.
We had some discussion about that. Quite honestly, if you read it to understand it, rather than just read it to react, it's pretty well laid out. You know, I think the biggest question was, you know, the bulky item pickups, what is that? Because people were thinking that meant only one item per time. No, that's bulky items pickup.
As long as they fit in
You know,
whatever
so
parameters.
Yep.
I think we.
And you can see that in the set out
guidelines.
guidelines where we have a size of the area is 10 foot by 5 foot. So,
Yep.
yes, multiple items in one pickup. And then would you go to the form quick, just so you can show them what it looks like?
But it's pretty much not much different than the old program, right? Other than you're scheduling your thing and it's not just everything all piled up out there.
Correct.
Right. It's just a little more
It's
manageable.
essentially, it's rather than 6 weeks of
Terror.
chaos or hell or whatever other word you want to use, it is, you know, done throughout the year. I did so well tonight
You were
too,
doing
until the
great.
very end.
Anybody else want to take a
We're
shot at
getting
the
a little
mayor on that
punchy in
one?
here, folks.
Go
It's been
ahead.
a long meeting.
I almost
All right, we're
Did you
losing
see-
control here, folks. Focus.
Losing the plot.
It's fine. We're good to go. We're gonna put out a media blitz on this
How soon do you think you're gonna start
next week.
next week?
End of the week is, or end of the month is this Saturday, so we will go March
Crap
2nd,
out
I
of your
guess.
house, look, people.
The large bulky item.
Yep. Okay? Great.
thank you.
Good work on that. Mr. Byrd,
You know what? We've been here a long time. I have nothing else to add.
okay, Robert,
you.
anything else?
Good.
Tim?
I've been here just as long as him, I don't have.
Okay. That's a great answer.
I've been here too.
Okay, that's a second great answer. Annie?
I'm good, thank
Pro
you.
Tem, all right. The only thing I have is, I'm stealing Eric's thunder, and everybody's thunder, basically. Patrick Moore of our Forestry Department, our Forestry Department Director, was elected the president-elect of the Iowa Arborist Association, which is another great kudos for our staff. We have a current library president. I mean, Burlington staff continues to lead the way. Couldn't be more proud of our people. You make us look good, so thank you very, very much. And more importantly, he was also recognized by that same group as the 2025 Volunteer of the Year Award. That's a double whammy, man. Good job, Patrick. Good job. Good job, Eric, your department, too.